Welcome to Beyond the Firewall, the business bitecast, where tech and business collide. Get expert insights, real-world strategies, and the latest trends in bite-sized episodes. Stay ahead, stay secure, and explore what's beyond the firewall. Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending Beyond the Firewall. And here we are with our friend Scott Sinclair. And we're very excited about having him as a guest. He's been in the industry now for many years, currently with a amazing career at Foodtastic. And we're very privileged to be working with him these days. Wanted to introduce him. And Scott, why don't you tell us something about yourself?
Well, Erez, thanks for having me. And it's a pleasure. I started in the tech world around 2013. So it's been about 11 years. I started freelance home tech, and I've worked in cell phone repair shops. And then I kind of got more into the corporate world. And now I'm an IT manager at Foodtastic. I've kind of worked my way up from quite a few different areas. My specialty, I usually say, is hardware. So I like to take things apart and fix them, like right from the motherboard up. But nowadays, it seems to be a lot more meetings and mediation than it does seem to be full-on repairs. But that's a quick little synopsis of my tech life.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's amazing how IT industry has evolved and everyone's career has evolved from plugging in motherboards and hard drives and tinkering with things to now more delegation and management and sort of coordination as an IT provider, as an IT technician. I find that we don't really open the boxes that much these days. Isn't that the case?
No, not even on the ground floor. They don't even seem to, even when you go to return something, I've even seen a few, I think there was a marketplace I watched the other day where they were talking about how a lot of returns are going back. So I was speaking with our a representative from Lexmark who was taking me, talking to me, and he was, I was saying how I thought the tech industry was going to start changing and people were going to start requesting where things are getting disposed of. So, I was even saying to him, I like to know if, I return this and it's no good, is it going to be recycled? Is it going to be reused, or is it just going in the landfill? Because that may decipher if I'm going to buy this or not.
Actually, a very interesting, kind of observation and status around that, because I think a lot of people these days take that for granted. Like, I'm buying a piece of technology. Assumption is that a lot of this stuff is disposable. When we look at, buying your cell phones, people don't really think twice about upgrading their phones every 12 months to every 2 years. And, the consideration of what that becomes, they assume they put it in a little recycling box, or they trade it in at the nearest cell phone store, that it's not going to get thrown into the recycling bin, or should I say the landfill. And with a lot of these types of technologies, most of the time it ends up with that in tow. And it's interesting where sustainability and eco-friendly conversations has arisen. I haven't seen it as a forefront of conversation, but I do know companies, definitely like HP. I was actually at one of their sustainability conferences and presentations, more than a conference, around not only the packaging, which is sort of mandated today, but recovering plastics and reusing recycled plastics. And I even know Lenovo had a series of machines that the covers now are, I think, almost 100% recycled plastic. So there's a lot of these manufacturers that are not making it as well aware of what they are doing and what portions of the machines are recycled versus, fresh material. And they tried to do it, but I don't think it's been well received, or should I say top of mind, when we're looking at buying a piece of equipment. Do you
Yeah,
guys
it's definitely
actually
not
do
the
that? Sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's definitely not the first thing that we buy for. Yeah, no, it's not like, we're not buying for, something that has, I think pretty much the standard is like 30% recycled, I think is the one I see pretty standard across. And,
Yeah.
that's not a buy point from that point. It's more of what do we do with it when we're done with it? So then that becomes more our responsibility.
Yeah.
So we take a little bit more ownership from our side to that. Don't do quite as much as um, we would like, because acquisitions and stuff come with quite a few old equipment, and a lot of times we do replacement right then too. So you have a lot of old receipt printers from a lot of restaurants and things like that. So, we try to find people that do full on recycling, and they do, but lately it seems to be hard to get people to come. They don't think we have enough, I guess. So we've had to resort to stockpiling quite a bit of it stockpiled, so that way they will come and pick up a load of it. So,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
it's got to be worth it for them, but at the same time, it ends up costing us to do that. So yeah, you gotta have the right team also behind you that's willing to say, okay, yeah, we're willing to pay for that. So yeah, we've had to kind of push for it a little bit.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it could change any day. There could come a time where it just isn't, and it's not profitable from our standpoint, which I can understand too. You can't, it, it, it's not that we don't live in a country where they seem to want to do the recycling. Um, there's not a lot of processes to take in the stuff and take it apart. So that's what I seem to notice anyway.
Yeah, I know. 10 years ago, when we were doing that for clients, where we were taking it in and sending it out to recycling centers, it definitely was easier. Definitely more valued in respect to picking up even 10 computers or virtually no equipment, and it was worth the trip. But with increased costs and labor, and in addition to that, fuel costs and all the other costs that have gone up in the last 3-4 years, the cost to go and collect that is a lot higher now, and the return on investment to doing it. I've heard from the recycling centers, because we work with them. They're like, yeah, unless there's like a truckload, it's not worth going out and picking up 10 machines anymore. It's just, if you're lucky, they break even on it. So yeah, it's a change in industry, and labor is a big cost when you're dealing with a recycling center, and you really are picking up scraps, right? At the end of the day, it's the gold and it's the precious metals that are in there, and copper and gold are the big ones in most computers, and the rest of the plastics are, you hope that they can do something with it. But it's an interesting one that I don't think these days are forefront and center. I know that a lot of people are thinking about it, but they're assuming that the manufacturing or the
Right.
manufacturer is dealing with 80% of that, and it's an assumption that companies and consumers are not very transparent with each other, from what I'm seeing. Like, I haven't
That
been
makes
asked in a
sense.
long time, is this environmental packaging? Is this recycled materials? Or, once we're done with this printer, computer, copier, are you taking this back, and are we trying to recover 80% of the materials? And certain manufacturers are still doing that, but not all manufacturers. Some of them have abandoned it. So, interesting point, and how the world's evolved in that respect. I haven't thought about that in a while, so that's interesting. So, talk to me. How long you've been at Foodtastic, and like you talk about acquisitions. Obviously, we don't need to know about the secret sauce that you guys have in there, but when I look at some of the brands that you guys are representing these days, between the famous ones that some people know, like Shoeless Joe's. Everybody's been to a Shoeless Joe's and a Milestones. I think those are flagship brands that almost everybody in Canada has at least gone to once in their life, if they're not visiting it quite readily. How many brands have you brought on board in the last couple of years, that since you've been on board? Or because I've seen a lot of activity, and it's quite exciting in respect to how you guys are doing that, and how things have changed.
Yeah, no, definitely it's grown because I was first affiliated through an MSP. So I was the liaison for the MSP. I actually worked out of the Foodtastic office, doing their office support for them, and then I would also do various work occasionally from the MSP for other clients, but mostly I was Foodtastic specific. I started there October in 2021. And that was around the time they actually did their first Canada brand wide purchase, which was Second Cup. So before that, they had I think it was about 14 small brands that were Quebec based. Most have about anywhere between, I think, 3 or 4 locations to 20 locations. So they're pretty solid base in Quebec. So it was in 2021 they bought the Second Cup, and since then they've acquired, I think, about 8 or 9 brands on top of that. So quite a few in the 4 years that I've been there. So yeah, after Second Cup, there was the big Milestones and Pita Pit were the first 2 real big ones that they bought after Second Cup. So they kind of made a pretty big statement right away. It was pretty quick, one after another. And from even just my career, just telling you how I got involved there, you can see how that's kind of how they grew as well. So just being involved with them as much as I was, they asked me to join them full time a couple of years ago, and then I came on board then. So they built their team specifically in the IT side from having just outsourced IT to now they have 22, 23 of us that do in-house IT and POS side. So that's like menu changing, monitoring the POS sales, and doing things with the payment processing, and helping stores that maybe want kiosks installed, like the new, self-service kiosk. That's a new thing that we're getting in a lot of our quick service restaurants. So, the technology, I kind of always say, is pretty much the baseline of pretty much every business. It pretty much needs technology and uses technology. So as it grows, as this business grows, usually the technology inside grow. So yeah, we've seen quite a few things. Yeah, payment at table is another thing that, when I first started, it was kind of like a premium service at restaurants where you would be able to pay at your table and not have to pay at a bar. And that seems to be a pretty standard now these days. And now they even have scan the QR codes right at the table and pay from your phone type of thing. So yeah, the advancement there, I feel like, has been a very more so the convenience of the customer side. So yeah, that's been kind of neat to see that come out.
That's amazing. And Foodtastic is a Canadian company,
Yes.
so
Yep. Yep.
we're not
Fully Canadian.
offshore. We're not like a foreign. This is
No.
Canadian born, Canadian bred type of
It,
founders
yep.
here.
Yep. Yep.
That's
Yep.
amazing.
Peter Mamas and Lawrence Mamas, the starters of Foodtastic. They are born and raised in Montreal, and they actually their family owned a restaurant when they were young, so they grew up in the restaurant industry. So yeah, they've pretty much done it all in restaurants themselves, and yeah, now they go around and we buy brands and help them improve.
That's amazing. So, like, with what's going on right now, you guys should be like out there saying, Canadian owned companies, and the market right now is all about, supporting Canadian businesses after, what's in the media and what's on the press these days. So,
Yeah,
for those that
100%.
are listening, let's go support some local franchises and local businesses here. It's a great opportunity there, and I'll be doing the shameless plug here, like, like, guys, like, if you are listening to this, or thank you for listening to this podcast. Yeah, there's what now, 15, 20, 30 brands under the Foodtastic brand of
Yeah, it's
franchises.
about 20, 25, I think, 25,
Yeah, it's a
24,
massive
25
list.
brands.
Between Copper Branch, I noticed that one. I know that everybody's been to Casada these days for Mexican, and Pita Pit's been around for a very long time. Second Cup, I would
Yeah.
say, is a landmark Canadian coffee shop. One of the first boutique style coffee shops in
Mhm.
Canada after you've gone out of the Tim Hortons, and the country style of the world and the local donut shop. Second Cup was the first in Canada, and the fact that it's still around and competing against the U.S. giant, I give it credit that it's still has legs, and it's still
It's actually
revitalizing
doing quite
itself.
well, actually. Yeah, it's
It
actually
is
doing quite
doing
well. Yeah,
really
yeah,
well
yeah,
right
yeah,
now. I'm
yeah.
pretty stoked about it. So yeah, it's amazing. Pretty amazing what you guys are doing with all these brands, and I actually enjoy going to some of the franchises because you guys have done a lot with it. Some of it due to necessity, like you're talking about the table side, or payment systems, but the fact that you guys are getting into the menu boards and you guys are moving into that new dining experience. Technology is pushing the whole food industry forward in such a different, unique way. And, I'd like to understand a little bit more about that because there's been debate. Like customers are saying less customer service, but at the same time, the expectation of the customer is, I want food faster now. And, you walk into a quick service restaurant like a Pita Pit, you want to walk in and out of that Pita Pit, or a Casada or one of these quick service restaurants. You want that under 5 minute experience walking in and out. Is technology really the driving force of the making this all happen, or is it like companies like Uber where people are just used to getting things when they want it on demand type of thing? Like, what's really steering that, or what do you guys see as part of the driving factor that we need to push technology to make consumers happy with what they're doing today?
Well, I mean, the definitely the convenience of the customer, like the self-service kiosk. Um, uh, Uber is still part of the whole technology basis. It's it's a service that we include even in our IT side of things, that we have employees who support that side of things. That is a part of technology that has made some convenience and increased that to some regard. I wouldn't say it's a complete driving force by any regard. It is a collaboration between multiple areas and a lot which are far beyond my realm. I'm not much for culinary arts, and I'm not much for marketing and that sort of a thing. So, to speak to those terms, I wouldn't be able to even compare them, but I do know that for the customer side of things, definitely technology, what you can bring in, what can definitely probably been 50% of what has increased that speed time for you, whether it's even just even something as simple as reliable internet, um, providing a reliable internet, or even just the education of the difference between what some places might get that might be like a home internet versus what is really a business internet, and what that means, and why there is a higher cost, but what you get differently, and what reliability means versus a cost efficient internet. So there's, even just like educating them, is a main, driving force that, I strive for, just making sure people are aware. We don't necessarily say you have to go with this provider or you have to do this. We just try to say, this is a speed we recommend. We've offered you this package because we can get a deal, but there's no forced hand. So a lot of it is more just educating them to say, this is why we would recommend your restaurant have, a 500 meg, at least a 500 meg connection, because you have customers coming in using bandwidth sitting here. There's, you can even sometimes go in and point to them, somebody here's watching Netflix in your cafe, you don't, if you want them to stay here and buy more, which they say that they do, then you would want to have a faster internet. So it's just, sometimes, that is sometimes even the more enjoyable part of my job. Actually, I do like that part, just sitting down with them, explaining the things, uh, uh, ex- educating them on why we do what we do, because we're not necessarily the driving force of the money machine, right? And IT is usually more of the cost, the expenditure, even in our industry. So we're not in it to make any money. So there's no gain from my perspective. I am trying to make it as easy for the customer and for the owner, the franchisee,
Right.
without, you know, also breaking the bank. So there's a kind of a tightrope. You got a balance there.
Sure. Yeah, and I find that a lot of other businesses, when it comes to hospitality, the biggest challenge I find, they make a capital investment. They upgrade their internet, they upgrade their Wi-Fi. They've got a guest service here, or they've implemented some new digital signage, and they fail to realize that things do progress. And I've seen it where 5 years later, the restaurant is still working on a wireless N or wireless G, and like you can't even stream anything on it. And I'm like, when are you putting in a new access point in here? Or, like you said, 500 gigs or 500 meg internet connection. They're still on 100 meg or 50 meg, and you've got 20 people in the restaurant, and everyone's fighting to get any sort of content down because. Or a coffee shop for the matter, because there's just not enough throughput or bandwidth to cover all the demands. Because everyone's cell phone, like an iPhone 16 today, consumes like 8 times more data than the old iPhone. So like, and I
Oh
mean
yeah.
like iPhone 13 or iPhone 10, and that's still a pretty popular piece of equipment today. But when you think about consumption of data and content, it goes up, it doesn't go down. Nobody's built a more data compressed since BlackBerry. Nobody was concerned about compression, everyone's looking at consumption, right? So
Mhm.
um both on product and minutes on their phones. So at the end of the day, you companies and organizations have to constantly look at improving those processes, even if they already have it, maybe out of date and need to upgrade it so that they've got the latest speeds or they got the latest performance so that the customer's experience meets those expectations. Because what do people do when they find out that they're not getting what they want? They'll go somewhere else where that service is available. And that's a driving factor to consumers these days. um to change the conversation, and actually you brought up like menu boards and Uber, and I'm really intrigued, like what do you see as the generational difference when we look at the younger consumer, and looking at, let's just say, somebody who's 40, 50 plus dining experience versus somebody who's 15, or 20 or 25, as those are my peak restaurant days when I was going to bars and, going for my wings and beers and stuff like that, versus today I go to a different dining experience as I'm getting older. But what do you see as, what's changed in the last several years? And then what are your projections on how, the dining experience, both maybe in a quick service versus a sit down, how do you see that evolving from a technology and a consumer expectation? Like are things really going to get to a futuristic perspective of virtual waitresses or waiters, and robots delivering food to your table, and or just like little slide things are going to, it's like Star Trek, are we going to really get there in the next 10 years? Is that what's happening?
Well, there is a few places that do have the robot servers.
Yeah.
I feel like it's hard to say, kind of, but I do feel like that will be still more of a novelty thing. You said it yourself; it's a hospitality industry, and in that human connection is a big, huge factor. I don't think we're going to be seeing a huge amount of automation come in to the service side of it. There is definitely a place, and there definitely will be settings where there will be a niche or like a novelty to it. Um, But I think on a general standpoint, for the full service side, especially, it's going to remain pretty much where it is. I think it's kind of um, part of that whole charm of it in itself too. There doesn't need to be an immediate nature to that. Now, the quick service side, like the quesadas and the pita pit, like you mentioned, I can see very much a lot more automation come into to it. Whether or not even that's a novelty to say, hey, look at this neat thing, make a sandwich in front of you or whatever. Or it's just a matter of making things quicker, efficient, and faster. That I can totally see it, because that seems to be the way the world wants things. Me myself personally, I kind of hope it doesn't. I don't really want my food that I don't necessarily care if it's fast or not. I would rather be right myself. But I'm a very difference of opinion in that fact. So yeah, for technology in quick service, yeah, like I say, automation, I think totally. AI, I don't know how much that could benefit. I feel like there could be a lot of there's a lot of prediction and stuff into how Uber and stuff and Skip and DoorDash do their modeling, and other marketing companies.
Right.
But form of doing automation would be, it comes at an expense, right? Where does the expense equate to the value from the other end? I don't see anywhere in our immediate future where there would be too much of a call for that. I still feel like, again, the human element of interacting with somebody, a lot of times you might want something made a specific way, and not being able to ask that could just deter you from going there all around. So,
Right.
would you want to lose some potential customers just to speed things along? I don't know. I don't
No,
know
it's a good point.
if technology would go that way. But to the forms of like consumption and stuff, where we go with the internet speeds, it's changed drastically again. There's another element I just remembered now, is when you have your even your televisions and your phones now are all running through the internet as well. And that's kind of changed the way a lot of restaurants are able to provide service, because it used to be that you would have to have several cable boxes and several different splitters, right, to have TVs playing different things. Now with smart TVs and all of these things, it's actually extremely convenient and much more cost effective for restaurants to have something play differently on every screen if they wanted to. I could even almost see going to smaller screens, be more single to booth type screens, like that sort of a thing. I know that a lot of places even now don't even offer menus, right? So you sit down and you scan a thing on your phone, and you can see the menu right there on your phone.
Mhm.
Um, um, Whether or not you would do even ordering that way, that could be a potential thing that could happen too, right? You could just place your order there and you don't really see that initial server. You actually just have a server at that point, not somebody taking your order. So that could be a potential area that I could see. But other than that, I'm not much for the predictive nature of future. I kind of just like to, you know, coast my day by day and solve the problems and put out the fires as they come across.
So you deal with the present. Yeah,
Yes.
it's interesting because like when I look at it, being on more the infrastructure, and I am playing with AI, and um, and from what I hear and what I lectures I attend through, Google and Microsoft and all the other vendors, it's an interesting balance right now between labor force or workforce for that matter, cost of the workforce, and then expectations of consumption and being able to put the product out. And I do agree with you that, your full sit down dining experience, you want to have that interaction. It's part of the experience. It's part of that. You go into a Finn McCool's or you go to a Shoeless Joe's. You want to be greeted. You want that person to hand you the beer, or serve you the dish and
You'd
actually
almost
have
feel
that.
weird walking in and there's no one to seat you.
Can you
I've been to some
imagine like
places
just go to
where
yeah your
there's,
your app your app tells you
yeah,
to go to table number whatever not, and then it's just food shows up. Yeah, the dining experience would be completely destroyed. But I totally see how like a pita pit, you either go to like a menu board, you pick your pita with the toppings and you can select all the different options. And then I can see like in the next 5 years, almost like a robotic conveyor system that, the wrap comes out and the toppings get dispensed and it auto rolls it, and you have the ability to do that. And I have a feeling it's coming. Like if it's not for that industry, it's for maybe salad, for Freshie or one of the other ones, because at the end of the day, from what I'm seeing right now, and I don't know if you guys have had to dip into it, but I'm seeing like foreign workers are working at other fast food places where they can't bring in people. Obviously, some of these franchises have taken backlash for bringing in all these foreign workers in the last couple of
mhm,
years, and consistency and quality has shifted for some of them. But at the end of the day, if we're bringing foreign workers in just to meet demands on quick service or fast food, um, robotics and AI are going to have to step in so that we don't have to rely on that. And if there is a lack of workforce, then the question now is why? And
mhm.
then, either economists are going to have to figure it out. Otherwise, there's going to be a huge opportunity for companies and the technology sector to fill in those gaps. And they will, because it's just a
That's what
huge
technology
opportunity for
does.
money, right? 24/7, no sick days, no vacation days, and it's just putting out product all day long, and you have to fix it once in a while or do some maintenance to it once in a while. So yeah, it's an interesting balance that I think we're going to be facing in the next couple of years. I don't even think we'll be 5 years out before you're going to start seeing various franchises or various companies in the world launching that for fast food or quick service if they haven't already. So
Yeah, there very well could be some in other parts of the world that are doing that because, like you say, yeah, there's the shortage in the workforce, which is a huge area. I didn't even I don't even really think about because I don't have much interaction with that. So that's a very good point. I can see that happening because of that. But again, it comes down to the cost on the owner's end. So how would that would it be a huge cost? You know, maybe some manufacturers would be able to make it a more sustainable cost. So yeah, who knows? It would be interesting to see if that's the way it goes.
yeah, yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting one. I know that that is a big conversation with almost every industry out there, from manufacturing, warehousing, 3P logistics, you name it. Almost every industry you can think of, even a pharmacist. Like, are you really going to need all the people behind the counter, or is there going to be like an Uber vending machine that's just going to do all the pill counting? And basically the pharmacist is just the one that's just going to hand you the prescription at the end of the counter, and it's auto dispense. Like, I'm sure it's coming at some point in time. So
Mhm.
we are in the dawn of the next industrial evolution, which will be AI and robotics. And I don't think we will recognize the world in the next 10 years, and that's going to affect a lot of industries. And I think hospitality is going to be a big one, as much as people are thinking not. I think the expectations, especially since the dawn of Uber, I know that my kids today, it's kind of like, what do you mean I have to wait? Or what do you mean like it can't be delivered? And they're not bad, but I know some other parents and their kids, and it's like literally they live on these types of convenience on demands, that when you walk into a Starbucks, the coffee's sitting there waiting for them within that 1 minute period, or it's already there on the counter so they don't have to get in line. So um and so we are in that transition world right now, and I think the winners will be the ones that embrace it, especially when you look at, um, you know, especially when you look at the new consumers and the younger generation that are driving that on-demand convenience.
Mhm. For
Yeah,
sure.
it's pretty cool. Yeah, so a little bit of a transition. Are you guys playing around with AI these days in any capacity, or are you just starting to tinker with it, or are you guys sort of where are you guys at your AI journey since all the stuff that we're playing with is coming out with it?
Yeah, we don't, not really too much. I know, uh, for our marketing side of things, because we do it in house, they use a little bit for like background imaging and stuff like that, just to save on the cost of stock subscription costs. I don't know if there's been any real benefit to that or not. And from our side, we've tried to not get too ingrained into it. We use a little bit for helping in day to day. We've got onto a little bit of Copilot, um, but the benefit versus cost has been uh, talked about a little bit. And, some people no longer use it because of the cost to benefit ratio. So, to that degree, it's not a huge benefit right now for a lot of our staff.
Right.
Um, a big benefactor for it would be, in my opinion, a lot of the meetings having taken place. Um, it, but that would require a lot of different people to have licenses just to record meetings. But it would be nice to have some sort of uh, a enterprise Copilot or something that recorded company meetings and kept an archive or something. That would be something I would like to see with AI. But I myself don't really use it too much either. I kind of use it more for helping with my emails, helping with maybe I'm trying to do something pretty on Excel and I have never done it and I don't know how to code that. So I ask ChatGPT, and it usually is pretty good at telling me, also with explaining why, like what the certain values mean and why they have that. So I appreciate that element of it, but I do fear sometimes that there's a little bit too uh, and this might be a generational thing, but I feel like sometimes some people do lean a little bit too much into it without even maybe checking other things out or checking to why things are.
Mhm.
So I've tried to steer some team members away from using it too much because of that. I find that they say, "Oh, I can code this, or I could make a app to do this," but then they don't really know how the things work, so they can't fix it when something goes wrong. So how do we really use it if we can't fix it if it breaks, or if we want to add something to it? How do we do that? You have to recode everything all again or something. So um, to some elements, it would be nice to maybe have an expert on our team that would be able to help people with it. But I don't
Right.
think it would benefit our bottom line that much.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And a lot of people, it's an interesting perspective because a lot of people don't realize it. Like Copilot and Gemini are like a year old when you think about it. Like Microsoft, we've been only selling that product and technology for just over a year. The enterprise pre-release was locked down exclusively to a series of limited customers. It was not rolled out across the globe, and so organizations did not have the ability to acquire that license. And so it's relatively new when you actually think
Mhm.
about it. It's only been out for 12 months. And there's a lot still to happen in the space. Like people haven't built out infrastructure solutions. There's still not enough consultants out there. And there aren't enough experts. If you really think about it, like nobody really can be called an expert when you've only had a product out on the market for 12 months.
Right.
You can be familiar, you can be proficient in it. You may have carved out a niche for yourself, but it's still an evolving technology, And every month or so, Microsoft and Google release a massive upgrade, and ChatGPT every Monday and Friday comes out with a new feature set. So yeah, I can only imagine what that's going to look like in another 12 months. It's not going to be recognizable to what we use it today. And from what I'm hearing, you're literally going to have a virtually real person talking to you in almost human like conversations. And some people say it's already there, they just we're not using it to the fullest potential. So yeah, it's an interesting game. I think we all have to take it in stride, and you're correct. Like, not everything that it answers does it know the proper and correct answer. And if you ask the same question with a different phrasing of it every time, you will get a different answer. It will not always be consistent in its results. So one of the things I learned using Copilot and ChatGPT is literally that is um, rephrasing the same question four different ways so that I get the right answer, because it's not always giving me the right answer.
Yeah, it almost takes a training in learning a new language and how to speak with it. So, that's a whole other element. And with the way technology generally is, usually it tries to be something that is, you know, easy to use or easy to figure out. And I find that because of that, a lot of people think that AI is easy to use or easy to learn. And as you said, it's still growing and changing too. So you may be able to learn it, but it's going to be different next week. Yeah, where will it be a year from now? What type of people will be experts? Will it be more of a niche thing where you might be an expert in one element of it? You might know the language, but you don't understand the coding of it, or you might know how to code. Yeah, so who knows? It's what the future will hold. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's a never-ending saga with technology. That's the one thing I do love about being in this business now for over 25 years is what I knew 25 years ago is already obsolete and no longer in existence for the most part. And 12 months ago, I wasn't talking about what I'm talking about today. And in the next 24 months, I'm sure whatever conversation I have today will no longer be valid or exist, because we'll be in a whole different world of, predictions and solutions and technology. And I can only imagine that once Windows 12 gets released in the next 12 months or less, we will be on that new horizon of new technology and the new generation, now that we've got NPUs and GPUs and CPUs. Like the triple core processor now, is changing the playing field. And the majority of the population, I think, doesn't really understand that we're getting to that next evolution of computer processing. And I joked around with people the other day saying, you do realize with the neural processing unit, which is now going to be part of every processor. I'm like, if you start thinking about it, it sounds like we're back in the Terminator day. Like that was the conversation, right? That was its neural processing, like we're gonna
Yeah,
get
yeah,
that
yeah.
now. Like
Yeah,
we're
that was
officially gonna
that
be
was
in
the game
Terminator.
changer for the T100 was that it had the neural processor.
Right. So like we're officially now a Gen 1 NPU processing. And that's in your cell phones now. Apparently the latest Pixel Pro has the NPU. I believe the new 16 has it as well. And it's a dedicated processor that's you exclusively to manage the AI communication between you and the cloud, so that
Yeah,
your experience is more seamless. And that's just going to be coming faster and faster, just like GPU did with the graphics. Um, and so yeah, we're going to be at an interesting point in the next couple of years on how fast, and that it's going to accelerate very quickly, because now they're not building it out manually; it's all being done on its own engine. So it's amazing how it can evolve itself without us having to do much intervention. So will be interesting.
well, the what was it, Nvidia and Disney and I can't remember the other company, their robot that they just showcased. That was the whole time I was just saying this is they just made a Star Wars droid, like they made a real Star Wars droid.
We are here.
So they're just making their own trademarks now into real things, which is, I'm just waiting for my cyberpunk wrist computer. That's what I want. That's what I always wanted to do. It's like in Fallout and cyberpunk games, do my computing on my wrist. And
Yeah, I remember
yeah,
those days. Yeah, well, that's the crazy part, is this reality of the world. We're seeing science fiction movies becoming reality in before 2030. Um, with space travel going up as fast as it's happening now, robotics moving forward as fast as it's doing right now. We were a little bit behind, and based on, call it, sci-fi projections, I would say that 2025 came and went, or should I say 2020 came and went. And a lot of people were saying, well, look at Back to the Future. We had shoes that would lace up by themselves, and we had hoverboards, and that never happened. And I'm like, yeah, it's true, but other things like electric scooters came out, and other things started progressing. But I think the acceleration of what we're looking at right now is massive, and that those fairy tale sci-fi movies are going to start becoming reality sooner, faster. Even though we were a little bit behind on projections, I think the future is happening faster than we realize today.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so interesting, where you're in the food industry, I'm in the tech sector. Obviously we both have a commonality that we're both in IT in that department. But I find that businesses in general always have a similar challenge. Doesn't matter what service, if you're product, service, what industry you're in, there's always a challenge. What would you say currently would be a challenge in your industry, or what do you see in the market as a challenge? Is the tariffs affecting the business? Labor? Is it product demand? Is it consumer spending shifting? Like, what do you see these days? Is it cyber? What do you see as, and it could be just an opinion. It doesn't have to be like you're the matter expert, but love to see what your perspective is on current challenges in the marketplace for businesses in general.
Well, for our business, I feel like the tariff the tariff thing, it's impacted slightly, but because we do a lot of our procurement through Foodtastic itself, they're able to, they were kind of ready for it. A lot of our already sourcing and purchasing is already Canada based. So, it's not a matter of that. There is obviously, quite a few, products you can't get in Canada. It's just their only sourcing is in the States. But from that side, I think, because a corporate, has that entity of being able to do procurement and all of that, I think that there is some safety there for us from tariffs. But for difficulties in for technology itself, I find it to be pretty much a struggle between who knows technology and who thinks they know technology. That is one of the pain points. And it's not to say that I think that our team knows, but I think that for our systems and for our locations and for what would best suit people, I think our team has done the right work. So I think we do know for these circumstances. So that's one pain point, because, like I said before, we don't really force people to get one way or another. So sometimes you start a project with the understanding that somebody may be getting the right products, or the right internet speed, the right routers. And then you find out later that the guy that they said that there was a professional is doing it is just, like their son or something, which there is nothing wrong with that. But there is a level of professionalism that we would like to see in a restaurant. It's going to be a business, it's not a home. It's not just having internet for the sake of having internet. You need it to run your point of sales. You need it for your cameras, for the safety of your employees. You need it for your phone to receive the phone. So, there's that education can sometimes help, but there can be some pushback where people don't want to spend any money in certain areas because they feel like they're a restaurant. They don't need to have extremely fancy router, or they don't need to have a switch added because they don't want it. They don't realize that they need it because they have, 8 cameras, and they have 2 phones, and they have, a couple computers, and they have 4 POSs. So that's probably one of the major pain points, is that some people just think they know what's best for technology for their business because they've done their home network so that's, yeah, I face that almost every element I've worked in. When I worked in cell phone repair, when I worked for Nerds on Site, when I worked, when I briefly worked for Geek Squad, it's like sometimes you're battling somebody that is trying to exert their knowledge onto you when you're like, well, you've hired me to come here to do something, so just let me do this and go. So that's been a constant pain point, I would say, technology wise. But
Yeah, and it's a very good observation, because I would say, a lot of businesses out there, they either feel that they're just a small business, so they don't justify to themselves to invest in technology. And I actually challenge everybody, because when you look at what Microsoft and every major manufacturer, Google, Microsoft, have really try to stay as agnostic as possible here. You're buying the same technology that a Fortune 5,000 company is using. You're just getting 1 to 5 licenses, or 1 to 10 licenses. It's the same, Google Workspace, the same Microsoft 365. Yes, they have the advanced security features, they have the enterprise level feature sets that you don't need, and they've stripped that out, which is why the price reflects it, but it's the same solution. And so when you try to piecemeal it yourself, half the time, a lot of individuals, don't have the background and the skill set to set it up correctly. And then the worst part about what's going on right now that I'm seeing in my space when it comes to this is security. Like, people have zero understanding about how to set up all the security measures, even on the Microsoft or the Google Authenticator, to make sure it's been set up correctly. And therefore, what ends up happening is they become the biggest target. And they always say, oh, I'm a small business on the Microsoft network or Google network. I'm like, doesn't matter. If you have 0 2-factor authentication, that means that they could have stolen your password off another data breach, and now they've got your credentials and you wouldn't even know about it. Or they're using a poor Wi-Fi setup because they found something super cheap on some website, and they thought $50 is all they need to invest into a proper secure Wi-Fi network. And yeah, maybe working for a personal residential, but for a business where you've got clients walking in, or you potentially have some, call it people that don't have goodwill for your business. They walk in, they see it, they hijack your network because they can hack the Wi-Fi network. And next thing you know, you've got a ransom payment that's due, and it's because of a silly, cheap Wi-Fi, or not setting up some basic security protocols that may take an hour of my time, or whatever it is, a couple, hours to set up properly on the network. And the DIY in them was trying to, cut corners, or trying to make it happen without realizing that there's a lot of nuances that are in there. So yeah, I agree with you on that. I would say that, there's certain things you want to fix yourself, and there are certain things you really want to get the expert in. I would never do the plumbing on my own home. I would never file my own taxes. I would never do those types of things. I got a lawyer and I got an accountant. Definitely don't want to mess with the plumber. I joke around with him. I'm like, outside of maybe a little knick-knack or something like that, like a changing a light bulb, sure, but like water damage is like massive damage. So, I don't mess around when it comes to certain things like that. I get the
yeah, for
expert and I
sure.
pay the fee.
Yeah. No, that's my motto all the time. I spend all my day working in IT. So pretty much anything else outside of that, even in IT, you say security, I wouldn't consider myself a security expert. I tell coworkers all the time when they're asking me a security question. And I'm like, we have a security team. Those are the people you email. I am not a security expert
Yep.
at all. Don't like, I cannot keep up with everything in IT.
Well, nobody
Can't keep
can.
up with, yeah, yeah.
The amount of stuff that's coming out with AI and with all the amount of bad actors out there, there's no one person in this world that can know every detail of every infrastructure and every solution out there to be 100% versed. It's just not physically possible.
Mhm.
And that's part of the reason why they put crack teams together, and now that's why AI is being implemented to support those teams, because even they have a hard time managing all the fronts because it's just too vast.
Mhm.
So yeah, there is nobody out there that can do all that in one checkbox. It's just not happening.
Or if they say they are, they're definitely not doing something
They're
right.
overselling. They're
Yeah,
way
yeah, yeah,
overselling.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I'd be turning around and running the other
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah, yeah. That's like
I,
if you came to one of our restaurants and you saw they were cooking a lot of different infusions of a lot of different cultures, you're going to go, yeah, they're probably not doing something right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, for sure. So, you know, I'd love to sort of, I always love to do this. I always love wrapping up our meetings or our calls with, some positive projections, positive outlooks, we've got a lot of great things that are happening in this world right now, as much as, sometimes the media plays that we've got this turmoil, but reality is we're living in an incredible time these days. I think we're also finally, for being in Canada, what is it, tomorrow, or is it today, or this week's the first day of spring, right? So I apologize, I
Tomorrow, yeah.
forgot if it's,
Yeah,
is it
tomorrow,
today?
yeah. No,
I
tomorrow.
forgot.
It's always the 21st. It's always the
Sorry, so
21st.
tomorrow's the first day of
Yeah,
spring. Like, I'm
yeah,
already looking at it as spring cleaning. We
yeah.
got we got summer around the horizon, patio seasons around the horizon, barbecue season. But like, what are your positive outlooks on what's going to happen in the next couple months, maybe next year? What are your projections on some amazing outlook projections, thought process?
Um, well, I just feel like there is a lot of good news, positive things, and a lot of that has to do with some of the tie-ins to some of the negatives we had already mentioned, and
Yes.
that is just the ease of the information. So that has caused a lot more people to realize, some things aren't right, some things aren't needed. One of the things I am quite surprised at the backlash for is the uh, anti-using of AI art. There's a lot of people out there who are saying, I don't want to watch a show if it has AI art in it. And there's even people saying this doesn't have AI art. This doesn't have AI art. This video game is not made with AI art. So, not that it's necessarily the end game for those elements to still come into effect, but I feel like there's still some elements of pushback. So there's still some knowledge out there that everything's not perfect in it. So let's not just put all of our eggs in those baskets right away. We don't have to jump all on that ship right away. So that's some good news. And I feel like the world itself is a little bit smaller every day, which can kind of help in the knowledge base of the people. So that's where I stand on the good news. I feel like every day we do progress a little bit, one step closer to not necessarily a utopia, but maybe a human world where people are living in more unity than we are now and have in the past.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I think we are definitely in a very interesting awakening, in respect to, what the world brings. I agree with you on that one. I think we are realizing also who our friends are, who are not our friends, what has worked in the last couple of years, what hasn't worked in the last couple of years, where the gaps are, what needs to change. And I think that,
The pride in Canada I've really liked is what I really like to see.
pardon?
The pride in Canada growing. That's what I like seeing. I hope that continues over the next
Yeah,
for
I would
just
say
continues.
the last time I saw the best era of Canadian Pride was with Harper, and the era of, ironically, the Molson Canadian commercial with the I
Right.
am Canadian, which I love playing that for people because that era around that time, everybody just walked around with a Canadian flag on every backpack, and everybody just traveled the world with a Canadian flag. But it was interesting because I would say that Canadian Pride during that era, in that window, I forgot if it was a 5 to 7 year window, was, I think, at the highest of my life. Like there was a bit back in the 70s, 80s. I can't remember what it was like because I was still fairly young, but I don't recall seeing it. And it came in around that time of that commercial. And I think the marketing team of the Molson team
Yeah.
really hit the nail on the head during that era because it brought everybody to its feet. And
I think that's why they remade it even. Like,
they brought it back. I don't know if did they
yeah.
remake that commercial?
Well, yeah, the guy redid another one. I don't know what it's actually promoting, but I saw it the other day, and they were talking about how at first he said he wasn't going to remake it because he was getting all the interviews about people talking about it. I guess he's still on the radio somewhere. I don't know if it's around Ottawa or somewhere, but he's just a radio DJ, morning show
Oh
host,
wow.
and yeah. And he
Yeah,
was he
no,
was he was 25 years ago, and I think that commercial was. I think it was 25 years ago. I think that's why there's so much talk about it this year too, because it's 25 year anniversary.
yeah, that's I can't believe it's been 25 years, but I know that, yeah, I would say that was the beginning of Canadian Pride in a different level. You know, we always had pride with our hockey, and I think that there was a bit of another perspective, and I think that evolved. So it's interesting. I will say that companies have very quickly come to the Canadian Pride. Like you go to the grocery stores now, and there's a lot more signage on, what's a Canadian business. I recently just placed an order for some steaks and stuff like that from a local farmer up, just out near London area. I figured, you know what, let's really support our local farmers and really put it back to where it matters. And I started thinking about it a little bit more when I go to the grocery store. And in general, I have over the last 5 years because I felt that products that were made in North America in general, and this is not taking sides on any political campaign or Canadian or American, but I find that the products that typically were made in North America, both Canada and the US, always had a bit of a better um, lifespan, shelf space, like shelf appeal, whatever it is, like kitchen appliances, food products, whatever it was. I always found that, it was a reliable product. And I started looking at the labels versus some stuff that, you would think it's $1 cheaper or $2 cheaper. Never thought about it. Next thing you know, it doesn't last. So,
Uh-huh.
because it was just a cheaper product from some country that didn't care about, quality. It was just about price. So,
Right.
I've made that shift, but that's another conversation. But I do agree with you on the whole pride thing, and I'm glad that people are waking up and in general looking at it at a different perspective. And I think we're going to have a big. I'm sure I'll have more than one interview about the upcoming election because I think CBC or Global News or whatever not was saying that we are going to be Carney's going to be announcing an election this weekend or by tomorrow for the end of April. So we may
Yeah,
be
it
in a
could be.
very quick and heated election campaign over the next 30, 45 days. So things will get interesting on the political side and the Canada side and global relations side. So um, I'm looking forward to seeing what this looks like. I'm excited. And I think whichever which way it goes, I think we're going to be in a position to start fresh because I think it's well overdue, and I'm glad that the opportunity to start a new page
Uh-huh.
is coming up. So it's all very exciting, and to kick it off in the spring, I'm gonna get my barbecue ready this weekend. So
Oh yeah, yeah. It's the spring, like you say, spring cleaning. Get the barbecue out. Yeah, get all the everything cleaned off, and yeah.
for sure, for sure. Well, Scott, I want to thank you for being on our podcast. It's very exciting. And for those of you that are listening, hope you like it. Hope you subscribe to our channel. Hopefully, we'll get you back out, Scott, on maybe another announcement. Maybe when you make a few more acquisitions, you can talk to us about, all the amazing new things you guys are doing. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming out today,
And
and
thanks for having me.
enjoy the first day of spring.
Yeah, yeah, you too. Yeah, enjoy that cleaning.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Take care.